Good morning. Today we're going to be going over some genetics problems via the Introduction to Mendelian Genetics Problem Set 1. If you happened to have been absent the last class before school closure, I've put a copy of this worksheet in this folder, so you can feel free to open it up, print your own version, or at least follow along, even if it's just on a sheet of paper with me as I go over it. So looking at the first two questions are definitions, a little bit of review. Really important here that you have a grasp on what genotype is versus phenotype. So genotype, this is the letter combination, and phenotype, these are things like physical traits, color, size, shape, etc. So make sure you're able to differentiate between the two. In question 3 here, we were taking a look at heterozygous, the concept of being heterozygous versus homozygous. In the answer key I've provided, all of the homozygous genotypes have either 2 capitals or 2 lowercases. I've highlighted them in green. Next to the line, you are expected to write HO for homozygous. And then in the case of a heterozygous genotype, HE, these are all highlighted in pink for you. Part 3A and 3B asked you to list out the genotypes that are true breeding. Recall that true breeding is the same as homozygous. So here we have listed out homozygous, dominant, capital, and homozygous recessive genotypes. In 3B, we're looking at the hybrid genotypes. Hybrid means the same as heterozygous. So here we have 1 capital and 1 lowercase allele. In question 4, you're given a statement about the concept of dominant versus recessive. In this first statement, purple flowers are dominant over white flowers. Recall that according to the concepts of Mendelian genetics, dominant alleles show over recessive alleles. So here we have 2 dominant alleles. Since purple flowers are dominant, a flower with this genotype, a plant with this genotype, would have purple flowers. In this next example, we have 1 capital and 1 lowercase. Again, purple flowers are dominant. Capital P is a dominant allele. It's going to cover up the lowercase allele. In the last example here for 4A, we have lowercase p. That is the trait, the recessive trait, and that's represented by 2 lowercase letters. So lowercase p. In 4B, we see the statement green seeds are dominant over white seeds. So here we have capital G. Since capitals represent dominant alleles, these seeds would be green. We have 1 capital, 1 lowercase in this next example. Because there's a capital, the seeds would be green. And in the last example here, we have lowercase g. White seeds are recessive. The only way that recessive trait is going to show is when there's 2 recessive alleles. Okay. As we move on to number 5, number 5 is the first time we're applying concepts of Punnett squares and actually doing a Punnett square. So this is also a Punnett square from a word problem, which is a little bit challenging. So here are some steps that I take whenever I encounter Punnett square word problems. In the word problem itself, you want to kind of digest the information that you're being told. In this example, number 5, We have pointed ears, represented by a capital E, are dominant. So I circled that they were dominant over round ears. So that means round ears are recessive. The next statement says complete a Punnett square between two heterozygous. Heterozygous is also known as hybrid, pointed-eared mice. So these heterozygous mice have pointed ears. We want to write out the parent alleles, capital E, lowercase e, capital E, lowercase e. These parents, this is the male and this is the female. I just designated them, but it doesn't specify male versus female in the word problem itself. Again, they're represented by two alleles. Their genes are represented by two alleles. And in this case, because they're heterozygous, it's one capital and one lowercase. From there, I've placed this set of alleles for the male on the top and the female set of alleles on the left-hand side. Please note, I separated the alleles. And if this is confusing, go back to the video I posted on probability and Punnett squares. If you're confused at this point, go back and rewatch that video. From here, we fill in across, lowercase e, and down, capital E, lowercase e, lowercase e. And inside here, highlighted in yellow, these are the predicted or possible genotypes for the babies. Okay, the babies between these two parents.